These are the plaintiffs, Harry Monroe III and Sherry Johnson Monroe. Harry says the defendant's a sneaky landlord who evicted him and his family for no good reason and is now refusing to return their hard-earned money. That's right, he thinks he has all the power as landlord to keep their security, but he has tenants' rights too. He knows it. The defendant knows it, and they're suing for the $3,600 they're rightfully owed. This is the defendant, William Seppi. He says the plaintiffs took advantage of his kindness since he was paying for the heat by keeping their apartment at 77 degrees. They were dressed like it was summertime in the middle of January, for crying out loud. He had no choice but to evict them. There's no way they're getting their security back because they still owe him for unpaid rent. And if anyone's going to walk out of here with money, it's not going to be the plaintiffs. He's accused of not getting along with his tenants. The defendant has filed a countersuit for $3,431.82 for unpaid rent and excess electricity.
All parties, please raise your right hand.
Welcome back to the People's Court. Next case on the docket. The plaintiffs say the landlord is a thief, stole their security. But the defendant says they were impossible, blasting heat at 77 degrees, and he had to pay. It's the case of the heat is on.
Thank you, Douglas. Harry Monroe and Sherry Johnson Monroe.
Yes, ma'am.
You're suing your former landlord, William Seppi, for $3,600, double the security deposit because he won't return it to you, and you have a counterclaim against them for about $3,400 for rent and damages, including some excessive electricity bills. Let me hear from you first. How long were you folks living there?
Yes, ma'am. We moved into the apartment January 7th, 2017. We lived there until Mr. Seppi gave us a notice to vacate on the 28th of January of 2018.
All right, so you lived there for a year. And did you have any problems during that year?
Yes, ma'am. I complained to him about the washer not working. Mr. Seppi called me and my wife down to his apartment at 11:30 at night.
Did he live in the same building?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
He stayed on the first floor. We stayed on the third floor. We went down there, and he accused us. He just jumped up and accused us of tearing up the machine. And when I was trying to talk to him, Mr. Seppi, for his size, he's pretty quick. I'm sitting down, and he jumped up and got right over my face, telling me to shut up, and hollering at me, spitting on me. Scared the heck out of my wife, and be totally honest, scared me. I'm disabled.
I wouldn't have gone to his apartment at 11:30 at night.
Yeah, because at first I thought he was, because he seemed to be a fairly nice person when we first met him, when we first talked.
Right, when he gives you a notice of eviction, does he tell you why?
No, ma'am, he did not.
Okay, and you didn't care because you wanted to leave anyway.
I wanted to leave anyway because of the issues we were having.
So what other problems were you having that made you not sad that you got a notice of eviction in January?
The way he hollers and yells at me, he bosses me.
So you just didn't want to live there. It was unpleasant.
I don't want to be there.
I got you. So he tells you that in January, and then February 1st comes. Do you pay the rent?
No, ma'am. I asked him about the rent for the following month. He told his specific words was, "I rather have somebody else living here." So he did not accept. He did not want to accept the rent. He said he'd rather have somebody else living there.
Did you have a month-to-month tenancy at that point, or did you have a year lease?
No, we had a month-to-month.
The whole time you were there?
The whole time we were there.
Let me see the notice he gave you.
Yes. Thank you.
Okay, so what he gave you was a 30-day notice on your month-to-month tenancy, and he told you you need to remove from said premises by March 1st. All right, and what about that says you don't have to pay February rent?
He told me I didn't have to pay February.
Did you ever tell him he didn't have to pay February rent?
No, Your Honor.
Because he doesn't strike me like the kind of guy who would let you float for February. Why would he let you? He has to give you 30-day notice. That doesn't mean you don't have to pay rent. No. Why would he tell you you don't have to pay rent?
Well, that's what, when I asked him about it, that's what he told me. He said, I don't want it. He said, I'd rather have somebody else living here.
See,
that was his exact
words. That only
words.
makes sense if you are being evicted for non-payment of rent, because then the landlord can't accept rent from you because then they have to let go of the eviction. You have a different situation. You have one where you have a month-to-month tenancy. So he's giving you your 30 30 days, you're done, and yes, he can collect rent. So I have no reason to believe that he wouldn't collect rent. So let's move on to the next issue. You lived there throughout February. When do you guys move out?
I moved out March 4th
Why March 4th?
because we had, it was a snowstorm.
Rented a truck to move out.
I rented a truck on the 28th to move out. On the 1st, fell on a Thursday. Okay.
Are you saying
that
there was
Friday-
a storm on Thursday,
that
or
Friday-
is it
that
just
Friday-
inconvenient
that
to move on
no,
during
that
the work
Friday-
week?
That Friday, there was a snowstorm.
The Friday, you were supposed to be out the Thursday.
Right. I said that Friday, there was a snowstorm.
Right,
I
but your
called Mr.
date,
Savage-
hold
I
on one
called
second,
Mr.
wait a second. Your date to move out, you were supposed to be clear by the 1st.
Yes.
So I don't know why a snowstorm on March 2nd would matter. So you stay on the 1st, you stay on the 2nd, you stay on the 3rd, you're out by the 4th. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And you still are, after not paying February and now owing March, you're coming to court to sue for your security deposit back. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
Sounds like a terrible idea. How much is your rent?
$14.25.
Is that accurate?
Yes.
All right, now you have a counterclaim against them for $3,431.32. You want rent for February and March, correct?
Yes, Your
Because
Honor.
they stayed there throughout March 4th. And then you also want these other things that I'd like to talk to you about. Excess of electricity. Tell me about that.
I provide electricity for the tenants. I pay for the heat, and it's considered that it would be normal usage.
And according to you, they spent an excess of $221.82 above what? Above what other people spend?
I didn't compare him to other people. I compared him to the previous 5 months of usage, which
Okay.
would include the summer, but in the winter, the electricity usage would be lower.
Okay, so where would his legal obligation to pay utilities when you're
It's no
supposed to pay
different
them?
than if he moved a machine shop into his apartment. I'm not paying for the electric for that. It's normal household usage.
Except for that, where are you guys from?
I'm from Florida.
Okay, so maybe your idea of normal usage and his is different. And he likes it warmer than you would tolerate it. You got mad because when you went to their house, they were in flimsy clothing.
I don't mind them in clothing.
No,
I
but
mind the
not for the-
temperature up 77 degrees.
Okay,
There's a verbal instruction not to have the thermostat above 70, and he followed that. But he got around it by bringing in this electric heater to get the temperature of the room up.
Can I
Yeah.
say something? When we moved in.
it was freezing.
It was freezing.
Okay.
And we're in the attic, and it's like slanted, so he can override it. We turned it up, he called us on the phone and asked us, why did we turn the heat up?
Okay, what is the ceiling painting? $300. What's that about?
Shortly after they moved in, they had their grandchildren there, unsupervised in the bathroom, and the floor got...
How do you know?
They told me.
Okay.
Plus, I went up and looked when the water came through on the second floor kitchen. The floor was flooded, and it took the paint off the ceiling, and I have to repaint that.
Okay, what happened there?
I have no idea what he's talking about.
So if the tenant cranks the heat up to 77 degrees, can they do that?
Yeah, I think so. You're paying rent if it's included. Just how do
But
you
at a
want it?
point, does it become kind of unreasonable?
Everybody has their sense of comfort. So, for instance, my wife, she likes it around 80 degrees, and I like it at 60. So
Who
everybody,
wins, by the way?
you're gonna have to ask that, right?
Going inside the courtroom.
Did you ever call him in and tell him?
No.
Okay.
I went up because the second floor tenant called me that the ceiling was...
Okay, when you went up, according to you, they tell you our grandkids.
They were there. I was...
No, I don't want to know what you assumed because you saw
No,
children.
I was
My
seeing
father
them.
used to do that. My father was something was broken. You kids broke that. Why? Well, you're kids. No, I want to know
I saw
who
the children.
told you what.
They were in the tub, and the floor was full of water.
Okay, did that happen?
No, ma'am.
Do you have a picture of the water on the floor or anything?
No, I
Do
don't.
you have a telephone?
Yes.
Okay. Do you have a picture of the ceiling in question? Because it could be a leak, some other leak, and then you're just trying to get them to pay for it. I need some proof of what you're saying. They're
Okay.
denying it.
I don't have a picture of the
And
ceiling.
you don't have a picture even of the
I
ceiling
only
that we're
have
talking
the
about.
estimate from the painter
Okay. So no on the electricity. That's something that in your agreement is something you're going to pay. That you can't say, well, you used the blow dryer too much this month, and you used the blender. You made too many marks. No, that's, if you don't like it, then the thing to do is to say, hey, I'll pay up to X. After that, you're on your own. That's the way to protect yourself, or put a lock. On the ceiling and painting, you have no proof. But I'll tell you what he does have proof of, because it comes right out of your mouth, that you lived there in February and you took up 4 days of March, which would require you to pay March. 1 day of March requires you to pay March. So why on earth would you file this lawsuit where now he's counterclaiming against you for the other month? The position we were in is that she's looking at him like she talked about that with him. The position you were in was that the security deposit, let's just let that go. That covers one of the months, and we got out late anyway. Let's not play with this. But no, you come in and you're suing for the security deposit. And so now he counterclaims for the second month. And now what? Now what? What do you think's going to happen here? What's going to happen is he's entitled to 2 months' rent. So what that leaves is a remaining rent obligation on your part, because rent is the security deposit was $1,800 and rent was only $1,425. Is that correct?
Yes.
Right. So you would owe 2 times $1,425 minus the $1,800 that's already there, which leaves a deficit of rent in favor of the defendant in this case in the amount of $1,050, which I am ordering you guys to pay. As to the rest of the stuff you're suing for, I find in their favor. And by the way, New York doesn't allow you to get double damages, okay? Net judgment in favor of the defendant in the amount of $1,050.
Thank you.
Well, in this case, the defendant really prevails. Mr. Moreau, you probably should not have filed the lawsuit. You're trying to get $1,800 back plus more, but your security. And now you got to pay him $1,050. What do you think about that?
Well, he got over. I'm not even going to even say anything because he got me off right now, so I'm not going to say nothing.
All right. Well, I hope you're happy where you're living now. All right, Mr. Seppi, you were suing for a lot of things, but you're going to get at least $1,050. Okay.
Yes, fine.
You're satisfied?
Oh,
Okay.
yes, yes.
Did you really go up into their room, scream at him, jump at him like
No.
you said you did?
No, I never did that.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you very much. You must
You're
sign a
welcome.
few documents outside.
All right.
Okay?
Thank
Right
you.
that way, sir. Thank you very much. Harvey?
Doug, this is a good example where you have to consider a possible countersuit because the plaintiffs did worse than they would have if they just walked away from their security. And that will do it for this case. Litigants for the next case on the way into the courtroom right now.